Hello and welcome to the MBOM podcast, where you will learn to master the business of yoga with guests from around the world who have experienced becoming successful yoga teachers, studio owners, and much more. Now, here's your host, Amanda Kingsmith.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the MBOM podcast. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Ceteris. You heard all about Ceteris on last week's episode of the podcast, but in case you missed it, Ceteris is a cloud-based accounting company based out of Charleston, South Carolina. And the reason why I love Ceteris is that Ceteris specializes in accounting for yoga studios and takes care of all of that work for you. As yoga teachers, we know it's super important to focus on what we do best, teaching yoga, and leave things like accounting and bookkeeping to the professionals. One of the great things about Ceteris is that it's built on top of QuickBooks Online and it integrates with MindBody Online. What more could we ask for? Some of the key benefits of working with Ceteris is that your accounting and bookkeeping should be done for you by a team of experts who know accounting for your business inside and out. They also have benchmarked reporting. Small business entrepreneurs can operate better businesses when they can compare their financial performance against peers in their industry. They provide peer benchmarking within franchise brands to optimize entrepreneurs' insights. Another great thing about Ceteris is that it's a team and not a person. With a team of experts behind you, you should never worry about what happens if your accountant goes on vacation. Oh, and did I mention that Ceteris is also willing to work with your current CPA, so you don't really even have to change much about what you're doing right now. To learn more about Ceteris' yoga accounting and benchmark reporting solution, please visit www.ceteris.com/MBOM. If you sign up through MBOM, you're going to get 50% off your first 2 months. So I hope that you take advantage of that and that you enjoy the benefits that Ceteris has offered to us today. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by YogaBossBabe. I am so excited to have YogaBossBabe as an official sponsor of the podcast because not only do I love what they're up to, but I've also had an opportunity to work with Liz, who is the founder of YogaBossBabe, in a couple different capacities. Had the opportunity to be one of the online workshop teachers running a course on websites. And I was also the spotlight teacher last week. And it's been so inspiring being in on their private group, getting to read everyone's thoughts on the book club, and so much more. I'm also super excited to announce this today because Liz is our guest for the podcast. I'll tell you more about that in a second, but more on YogaBossBabe for now. If you haven't heard of YogaBossBabe, you definitely should. It's a monthly lifestyle subscription box for passionate and motivated female yoga entrepreneurs who want to build and grow their businesses. Each month, you receive a box of goodies to keep you on track and feeling inspired with your business. This includes workshops, books, and other awesome products to help you with your business and keep you feeling inspired. For more information about YogaBossBabe, please visit www.yogabossbabe.com and use promo code MBOM15 for 15% off your first box. All right, now it's time to dive into today's episode of the podcast. I'm almost turning into the Tim Ferriss show here with so many ads. But I hope that you're enjoying the sponsors of the podcast. It's really amazing to be able to connect with these awesome companies who are really trying to offer great deals and products and services to the yoga world. So I would highly recommend checking them out and seeing if it's right for your business. So today on the podcast, I have Liz Nguyen here from YogaBossBabe. And I was so excited to chat with Liz because we've been friends for a little bit and we've been in contact and we've kind of been following each other's businesses. And it was really awesome to sit down with her and hear about her teaching story, what she's learned as a yoga teacher, what inspired her to create YogaBossBabe, and so much more. So without further ado, here's Liz. I am very excited to be joined on the podcast today by Liz, who is the founder of YogaBossBabe. Liz, welcome to the podcast today.
Hi, Amanda. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited that we've had the chance to connect and that we've been able to collaborate together and work together a little bit. And now I'm really excited to be able to share what you do with my audience.
Perfect. I'm so excited to share my experience with your audience and to see how I can help your audience better their business journey.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to talk about, what you do at YogaBossBabe, where that idea came from, what you've learned through that whole process. But I think a good place to start is to back up a couple years and talk about how you first got into yoga.
Of course. So I think I started in 2012 or 2013. And my friend and I actually found a Groupon for a local yoga studio, and we decided just to go. And it was a power vinyasa class. And from that first time that I went, I absolutely fell in love. I just kept going to classes. And at the time, I wanted to find a good way to exercise, to get that routine in, but I really hated the gym. So once I found that one vinyasa class, I fell in love instantly. I just kept going. It motivated me to stay healthy and to stay fit. So I stumbled upon a different yoga studio called Core Power Yoga, and I fell in love with that studio instantly. It's a hot power vinyasa studio, and I took classes there for about 6 months, and I decided to do my teacher training there for a 200-hour power vinyasa training, and that's when I started teaching. And shortly thereafter, I enrolled in Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles, their yoga therapy program, in 2000, I think it was 13. I studied there for 2 years, and I got certified as a yoga therapist there. And after that, I opened up a corporate yoga business, serving around Orange County and San Diego to companies that need or want to have yoga as part of their daily routine. And I did that for about a year, and I started YogaBossBabe after that. And this was my vision for YogaBossBabe, was just to kind of inspire and motivate yoga instructors to kind of get their name out there, because I had a lot of challenges after I did my teacher training. So I just wanted to kind of share my experience and kind of, in that process, help other teachers build their businesses as well.
Amazing. That's such an awesome story. It sounds like you did all of that like very quickly.
Yes. So when I first started to fall in love with yoga, I researched everything that I could do with yoga and how I could turn that into a career. While I was in college, I wanted to become a pharmacist or even a physician assistant. So I kind of knew I wanted to help people in the medical field. And so I found the program for LMU's yoga therapy online, and I set that as a goal. After I finished my 200-hour training, I would just continue on to that program right afterwards. And from there, it kind of just sparked different ideas of where to take yoga afterwards.
Yeah, that's really cool. I've seen like Core Power, all over the place, but I've never actually taken a class from them. I have looked into their teacher training, though. It seems like it's like a pretty good program. Can you tell me a little bit about like what that teacher training was like? Sure.
For me, it was a right crowd, the right community, if that's a better word, if that's a better way to say it. I took a couple of different classes at different yoga studios, which I didn't really connect with. But for me, Core Power was it became like my second home. The people I took teacher training with, like I just instantly connected with, and it was such a supportive community where the second I walked through those doors to the studio, I just felt at home. So it was great for me to have that support system. And going into the teacher training aspect of it, we met up a couple times a week to dive into the actual yoga philosophy and the asana practice. And through that, we just learned so much about each other. And I still am very close friends with some of my classmates from my first 200-hour teacher training, which is amazing because it's been about 4 or 5 years and we still talk on a regular basis. So that's really amazing that I've had that connection through those, I think it was 8 weeks that the training program was. So just that whole experience for me, it was great. I would say that hot yoga isn't for everyone, but for me it was great because I needed an outlet for my mind, because my mind was always racing, and I felt like the traditional type of yoga where you kind of hold pose for a very long time, it made me more aggravated in a way where I just my patience was being tested because I wasn't moving enough. But with the heated power yoga, I was moving constantly, getting that energy out, and just right after the class, I just felt so amazing. So that's why I am so in love with those types of classes.
Yeah, definitely. I can relate to that as well. I think maybe like a little bit less now that I have like more of a regular yoga and meditation practice. But when I first came to yoga, I was very much like super busy and I was working corporate. I guess I was in university when I first did yoga, but then working corporate job when I was like really practicing. And I feel like I really needed like to work really hard and like expel that energy so that I could like get into Shavasana and be like, wow, this is really nice. And like my mind is feeling kind of clear now.
Exactly. Like right after Shavasana, I felt like like on a high. And I felt like so powerful and motivated that it just got me coming back to classes. And I just love that about yoga.
And so after that, you did this yoga therapy program at LMU. What was that program like?
2 years I was at LMU for the yoga therapy program was such an amazing experience. It's led by Larry Payne, and he has a bunch of different experts in the field come in, and he actually has medical doctors come in as well. And the way that the program is set up is really interesting. So the whole program is 4 years. So the first year, which is level 1, is held on the first weekends of the month, and level 2, the second year, is held on the second weekend, and so forth. So it's a really great program for people who have day jobs or don't have a lot of time. In my class, there were people who actually flew in from Boston, Las Vegas, and Phoenix every time that we met. So it fit into their schedule really well. The program itself taught a lot about the anatomy and how it works with yoga, and it's just a great program to marry Western medicine with Eastern medicine, because when the doctors came in, we would get the medical side of what we were learning. And then the day before, we would learn about the actual yoga process of it and how that affects our body. And then it was great to kind of see it come together with Western medicine and see how that works and how that ties into what we're dealing with now in society.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. It's so interesting that there's a university offering, that type of program, because I feel like it's really, really uncommon to hear about, universities integrating with, yoga studies. Yeah.
What's actually more interesting is that Loyola Marymount is a private Catholic school. So even more so that they're offering a yoga class or yoga program. They have a section of like spirituality and kind of more like religious aspects of the school, but the yoga portion of it's fairly new. It's only about a couple years old, but they've been very supportive in it, and it's been growing every year, so that's really great. And I love that it's at a university, so it gives the program a little bit more credibility than if it was just at a yoga studio. So no matter where you take yoga therapy programs at, there's a higher body that kind of oversees everything, sort of like Yoga Alliance with yoga or registered yoga schools. So they kind of handle everything there. So with yoga therapy, there's a new body called International Association of Yoga Therapists, and they're the ones who actually credit these programs and everything. So if you are interested in doing yoga therapy, I would suggest that you go to an IAYT accredited school to do that.
Okay, cool. Awesome. That's really good to know about. I didn't know that even existed. So that's really, really interesting to hear about. And you mentioned when you were talking a little bit about, your story and your background, that you created YogaBossBabe because you were having challenges after your teacher training. And I know that that's like the exact same reason that I created MBOM. I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you experienced after your teacher training.
Sure. So a little bit more about my background. I have a business degree from Cal State Fullerton. So I have business experience, or actually like the education that backs it up. So I believe that every yoga teacher in one way, shape, or form is their own entrepreneur, only because it's very different than going to, let's say, like a 9-to-5 job where you just go to work and go home. As yoga teachers, we have to kind of look for our own classes, kind of brand ourselves, kind of market ourselves out there, and just kind of be our own advocate. So I feel that is very similar to business people and entrepreneurs. So one of my challenges was to find different classes to teach. I remember when I first graduated the 200-hour program, I really didn't know where to start. And a lot of teachers ask me that too. A lot of new teachers come up and ask me when I was teaching, how do I get these classes? How do I, do I just go into these studios to see if they have classes to teach? Or how do I get it in touch with something like that? I had the same problem. For me, I was lucky enough where I went to a gym and they were actually looking for a yoga teacher. So I was hired pretty much immediately because of the need. And that's also one of the reasons why I founded corporate yoga business too, was because I wanted to also give teachers a way to expand their classes as well. Instead of just teaching at the studio, I wanted to offer them in a corporate setting where these people who are sitting in front of computers all day would need it the most. And it's been such a journey seeing the transformation of these workers just being more relaxed at work and being more productive at work. So it's great to kind of see their journey on that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I could not agree with that more. Like, I came from same background, like educated in business, and then entered the yoga world and was like, oh, like people don't seem to know how to make jobs or make a sustainable income. And I feel like there really is a need in the industry to have resources out there for, people, because I feel like and 200-hour yoga teacher training is like, it's great that it gives you this kind of basis, but I feel like you can't cover everything. It's just not enough time to teach somebody how to actually stand in front of a room and guide people safely through the different poses and teach them how to run their business. I feel like it's not enough hours at all.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I don't blame these programs for not teaching the business side of it, just because, like you said, it's such a short program in the big aspect of it because it's only 200 hours. But every time there was like a business module, no one would be listening and everyone was kind of bored. And I kind of agree, because it's not like yoga teachers don't want to learn about business because it doesn't align with yoga teachers, if you would agree with me. They don't want to run a business, or they think that business is this big, different corporate. It's like corporate in a way when they don't just want to do that. So that's why I created YogaBossBabe. It was to kind of bridge the gap between yoga and business to kind of make it fun and learn how to grow your business at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that we're on the same page with that. I think you bring up a good point too, where yoga teachers often don't come to the yoga world because they're super stoked on this idea of like creating a business. And I don't think that that's all yoga teachers. I think that that's just some. I know that there was somebody in my private Facebook group today who said like, I just really want to be a yoga teacher. She's like, but it's really hard to just be a yoga teacher when I don't know how to like market myself or get people to like know about my classes. And it's like, once people are in the door and on the mat, it's like she can do her thing, but it's like, how do you actually get people knowing who you are and coming to your classes? And I feel like, that's kind of what teachers need to learn. And it's like really hard to teach that when you're trying to teach them so much anatomy and so much philosophy and so much breath work and like, et cetera, in just this small amount of time.
Right. I totally agree with you. And one of the things that I learned in business school was that the thought of if you build it, they'll come. And that's what a lot of people have the idea of. You can have a great idea, but you also have to learn how to market that effectively, because it's not going to happen. If you just build it, they'll come. They won't know about you. So you kind of have to expose yourself and get your name out there as widely as you can. And even if you do that effectively, the first time that they see you, they're not going to go immediately to your classes. They kind of have to kind of get to know you, get to know your personality, kind of know you as a teacher. And if you connect with them, then they'll probably come and try your class. And then once they experience your class and they feel a connection with you, then that's when they'll start coming and telling their friends about it and everything too. So there's a whole process along with this. So I just wanted to kind of expose that to yoga teachers. And it's not that easy to get classes right after you teach. And it's such a long process after that. I don't want to scare anyone away, because it's such a fun process. And once you have your community, once you have your following, it's so you're so grateful for everyone, all your students. It's very inspiring to hear their stories as well. So
yeah, definitely. I think that, and maybe tell me if you disagree with this, but it seems like maybe with the influence of social media, it can kind of get into people's heads. Like, okay, I'm going to like go create an Instagram account and I'm going to be like Insta famous. And then I'm going to be like teaching workshops and retreats around the world. And I'll like, go to Costa Rica and lead a teacher training or whatever. And I feel like, there are lots of yoga teachers doing that kind of stuff. And I think that the important thing to note with that is that they've been working really hard at it for a long time. Like it doesn't just happen overnight. And I think it can be the type of thing where yoga teachers can kind of get it in their head that like, oh, this is going to happen really fast. And it's actually a lot of work and it does take time. And like you said, it takes time to, build up your students and your following and gain their trust. And then you can slowly like work them through that sales funnel after that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, especially with Instagram nowadays, where teachers would just kind of do really cool poses on the beach or wherever it is. And those are great. And that's one way to get a lot of followers. But if you're going to teach at retreats and doing all these different events, my suggestion would be to kind of build up your name first, to build up your community, get really good at what you do. And then with that, you take the next step and have a retreat and see how that goes. And then your followers will kind of follow you around. I think that would be, for me, that's what I would do if I was going to go down that route. Because if you just kind of put your name out there right after you're done with teacher training, no one's really going to know who you are or what you're about. So with that whole branding in the business, you kind of have to brand yourself first, build that personality for yourself, get known, get your name out there, and then people will kind of naturally flock to you if they feel that connection with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And then I think something else with that is important for people to remember is like, it's okay if somebody comes to your class and they don't necessarily, love your teaching style, or maybe the things you say don't resonate with them, because I think that that's why there's opportunity for all of us as yoga teachers, is that we're all going to resonate with different students, and the things we're saying and the way that we teach is going to be, unique to us, and different people are going to want something different out of their teachers.
Yeah, I totally agree with that statement too. One of the things I was struggling with after I finished teacher training was, oh my gosh, I don't sound like her, or I want to be like this teacher who's amazing and no one's going to like me or my classes. But when I started teaching, I found a following, and I was kind of not surprised, but kind of it humbled me in the way where I was like, okay, well, I have something to give back to these people, and these people like what I'm doing, so they keep coming back. And like what you mentioned, you're not going to make everyone happy, and that's just kind of an unrealistic goal to have. Think of yourselves as a student and taking these yoga classes, and you're not going to like every single yoga teacher that you're taking classes from, so you can't take it personally, and it might be the way that they teach or their voice or something that just doesn't resonate with you, and that's completely fine. You can't take it personally. Just be really proud of who you are, and just be authentic about where you're teaching from, and you'll have your followers. You'll have those people who resonate with you. And just with you, Amanda, we kind of are in the same aspect of offering entrepreneurship courses and guidance to yoga teachers, but we're doing it in a different way. And I love that we're collaborating, because it's really not about competition, because the more we collaborate, the more we can expand. And if someone doesn't resonate with what I'm doing, they might resonate with what you're doing. And that's like that's what we're after. Like that's what the goal is, and we're not just in it for the money or the sales, but we really want to help these yoga teachers like kind of expand. And that's what I feel my goal is.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure you feel the same way.
Oh yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, we've kind of talked offline a little bit about this, but I was telling you how there's other people who are in the yoga podcasting space. I've had a couple of them on the podcast, and every time I get to connect with them, it's not to me about like, oh, you're doing the same thing as me, because they're never going to be doing 100% the same thing as me. And I mean, there's like hundreds of thousands of yoga teachers. Like, if I was going to come into it with the mindset of, I don't want anybody competing with me, I'm probably in the wrong industry to start with.
Right. Exactly.
And I think there's so much that can be learned from each other too.
Yeah, totally. And for me, that was one of the biggest challenges, was to forget about competing against another teacher, because I think that's just in our nature, where we see this other teacher, he or she has so many students going in that class, and maybe they like him or her a lot better than me, or whatever the issue is, right? But it might not be the teacher, but it might be the timing fits their schedule better, so they are able to go to that class where your classes are in the middle of the day and they can't. So there's so many different factors and reasons why a student will go to one class over the other. And most of the time it's not because of they don't like you as a teacher, because I feel like it takes a lot to completely not resonate with a student. So I feel like there's so many different factors into what your following is. And like I said, the timing of your classes, if it's early in the morning or late at night, and everyone else has their own lives to kind of to live, and it's just how they fit yoga into their schedule too. So
yeah, no, 100%. I definitely agree with that. I'm curious about the corporate yoga business that you started. Like, you said that the idea kind of came from, talking to other students or other teachers when you were a new teacher and wanting to have something where you could offer something more unique. Can you talk a little bit more about this business that you created?
Sure. So it was after I finished my yoga therapy training from LMU, and I actually do medical billing for my day job. And for me, sitting in front of the computer and just typing away, it really took a toll on my body. My neck and shoulders always hurt. My lower back hurt. I didn't have the proper posture to sit all day. And being a yoga instructor, I can say with a guilty conscience, or I don't know how else to say that, but I forget to get up and stretch every hour or however it is. And I actually have a reminder on my phone to get up and move around a little bit. But when you get into when you're working and you're getting into something really deep, you kind of just want to power through it, and you don't want to get up because you'll lose your train of thought. You just kind of want to finish it before you do anything, and then before you know it, you're onto something else. And before you know it, it's the end of the day. You haven't gotten up for a couple hours. So for me, it took a big toll on my body, and I felt that was a huge necessity in the corporate world and businesses and offices, because that's basically how everything is set up. A lot of times, businesses, they just kind of focus on productivity, and but nowadays there are some companies are coming up, and they're more so startups and the younger businesses, where they're more likely to offer wellness classes and gym classes and yoga classes. So I wanted to offer that into their offices and bring yoga teachers on site and have their employees come and do yoga in like a conference room or outside in the park, just to get out there and just stretch out for, 45 minutes, 15 minutes. And it creates such a difference in their day that they are more productive and they get sick less. And in return for that, they don't take as much sick time. And for the company, if they don't use sick time or if they don't use their insurance policy, then the company's insurance premium will go down after a year. So that's a benefit for them as well.
Yeah, I cannot agree with that more. And I think so I spend most of my day at my computer. So my boyfriend and I were actually just talking about this morning, how, he's like, I was working at this office that we have in this Airbnb we're staying at. And he's like, I was able to get up and do some stretching, some yoga, and then go back to work. It's like, it's so nice. And I think it's really easy when you're working on a project that you kind of get more and more into it, and then you're more and more hunched into it. And then before you know it, you've been sitting in the same position for 2 hours and you literally have not moved. And I think that there's definitely a need for that. I have to remind myself personally, I'm like, okay, get up, walk around, refill your water, stretch a little bit.
Well, for me, since I work from home, I have dogs at home. So every couple hours I have to go outside and walk them. So that's my reminder. If I didn't have them, I would probably just be sitting all day in my chair and just kind of hunched over, focused, and just, I need that break. And even though I feel, I'll say that walking the dog is kind of a distraction. But I think overall it helps me actually get out moving, because I'm out there walking the dogs for about maybe half an hour, and it's such a good break just to go outside, take a nice walk, get some fresh air. And then when I come back, I'll do some stretches to kind of just open up my shoulders and my neck, because I hunch over a lot, and that's what I'm working on to kind of fix my posture. So I'll add in some couple stretches there and then just kind of get back to work.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
That actually helps my productivity too, because I feel like I'm more focused after that as well.
Yeah, I think that there's some sort of scientific research on that, where it's like really beneficial to actually take a break. Like I remember when I was in university, I would just be like, I need to study. And somebody was like, oh, it's actually like really good for your brain. Like I don't even know how long it is, every hour or something, to take a 15-minute break. And I was like, no, it like takes me out of my like zone of concentration, and I have to get back into it. Right. But I think that if you're working on something all day, or, you have to work for a certain amount of hours to get your projects done or whatever it is, I think that there is a lot of benefit to like step away from it, come back with a fresh brain. You can be more creative. You can feel better. You're breathing more. Your posture's better.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And something I can kind of relate to with that is kind of like binge watching. So whenever I find a show on Netflix that my boyfriend and I kind of just binge watch on, we'll just watch back to back for hours on end. And when I think about it afterwards, I kind of get lost in the detail of what happened during the show. Whereas if you just watch an hour every week, you're more likely to kind of remember what happened and remember more of the details. So taking that and putting that into your everyday life, once you're so involved and focused in one thing, there's a lot more chances that you might miss on the details because you're so laser focused. But if you take breaks and you take moments of fresh air to stretch and relax and just have a coffee or just to give yourself a break, then I feel like you can be more productive. And even though it sounds counterintuitive to take a break to be more productive, I think it just allows your brain and your body just to, just that break to reset and then come back when you're ready.
Yeah, for sure. And so you started this corporate yoga business. Did you find that like the uptake was really good right away? Like businesses were really responsive to it?
It's difficult. I'll say that because there are some companies who are really interested in it. And there are some companies that might not be a good fit. So my biggest challenge with companies is that even if the employees and the managers want yoga in their company or in their day, ultimately it comes from HR and the big bosses, like the executives. So if it's not in their budget or they don't feel like yoga is a necessity, then they're probably just going to say no. So that was one of my biggest challenges with introducing yoga into offices. I would have time and time again that, employees and these office managers were like, yeah, we would love to have you guys come. I'll do trial classes and everything. But at the end of the day, it's still the decision of budget or time or just the owner of the company might not feel or think that yoga would be a good fit for them. So they'll just like cut it out. So that was one of the biggest challenges. But like what I mentioned before is if you kind of target to companies that are health conscious and health forward, then it's easier to kind of incorporate yoga with them because it's already aligned with what their values are. So once you don't really have to kind of explain why yoga would be good for their employees. They kind of already know. And chances are the HR people, the owners of the company will have already taken yoga and they know for themselves that it's a good fit for their company too.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. That doesn't surprise me that you've got to get kind of like the higher levels on board. I feel like that's kind of, the downside of bigger corporate companies is it gets a little bit bureaucratic and they've got budgets they have to follow. And it's not just like, oh, can we do this? Yeah, we're interested. Okay, cool. We're going to pay. We're going to have it happen.
Right.
What is kind of like the going rate for corporate yoga?
That's kind of hard to say because it really depends on your location and it really depends on their budget. So, I've heard of these really big companies. I'm not going to say their name, but I'm pretty sure you've heard of them, but they would only offer about $28 for a class, which I think is pretty low. Mm-hmm. And then you have like these smaller companies who offer up to like $200 a class. So it really depends on the value that they place on this yoga class. So kind of like what I was saying before is like these bigger companies who are more bureaucratic or the owners don't really understand the benefit of yoga, they'll probably place a lower monetary value on these classes, whereas the smaller companies who have that vision to include yoga to better their employees' experience at work, they'll place more of a value, they'll see it more of a value and they'll kind of pay more for it because they understand that it's long term and it's not just like a 1 hour session and that's it. It's sort of like an investment on their employees and their well-being and their health. So that's where I see the connection with these smaller companies who are more health forward and health conscious.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. So if somebody's listening and they're like, okay, I want to differentiate my brand and I want to do something, outside of the box and not just teach at studios and they want to maybe go into the corporate world. Do you have any tips for how to kind of approach companies, negotiate those contracts or that payment and that sort of thing?
Sure. So usually yoga teachers have a day job before they start completely immersing themselves to teaching. So my suggestion would first to kind of just go to where you are already. Ask your own company that you work for to see if you can start teaching classes there, and just kind of get used to it. Get used to teaching workers or employees because it's a very different demographic than teaching at studios. Students who come to studios they probably already know what everything is. They know about their body. They know their lefts and rights. And I know that sounds crazy, but when you're in it and when you're new to yoga, especially with workers, they're listening to everything you're saying, but for them it's really fast. So they kind of get confused into where lefts and rights are. So with teaching corporate yoga, you're teaching to a demographic that's maybe about in their 30s and their 40s range and who do sit at their desks pretty much all day and have a medium active lifestyle. So they're going to be more tight than your regular student who goes to a studio class. So it will kind of be more of a basic class to an intermediate class that you'll have to teach. And they'll listen to what you're saying, but they're not really listening because it's pretty overwhelming for them too. So you just kind of have to keep going, speak slowly and make sure that you go around and correct postures if it's something that they could get injured on. Once you start feeling comfortable teaching classes at your own workplace, you can start asking your friends to see if their workplace would want to add yoga to their routine. And once you feel comfortable with that, then you can start branching out to different local companies around your area and just to reach out to them. I would ask to talk to a manager first and maybe HR and see what their thoughts are on that. What I've done in the past was I would actually go door to door to different companies and leave my business card, leave a brochure of what I do, and have a website on there too so that they can come back and connect with you if they're interested.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. Thanks for those tips. I feel like that's super helpful. I've never taught in the corporate space, so definitely good things to keep in mind. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Fave Yogis. You've been hearing about Fave Yogis for a couple of weeks now, and Fave Yogis is really, really awesome because it was developed with yogis in mind. As a yoga teacher, it allows you to put up your events, your classes, and your workshops on the device and invite your students to come and find you. This means that students can find you from all over the world. On the flip side, if you're a practitioner, it allows you to sign up and find your favorite teachers. So I would highly encourage you, head on over to your app store, download Fave Yogis, FAVYOGIS, completely for free. Get started with the app. Enter in MBOM to let them know that I sent you. So diving into a little bit about Yoga Boss Babe, what inspired you to create Yoga Boss Babe?
What inspired me to create Yoga Boss Babe? Now that's a great question. I'd been teaching for about 5 years, and I was getting so many questions from teachers about how to get more classes. When I would ask them about how they were doing it currently, they would often just say that they would reach out to studios and just saw what happened. I realized that outside of studio teaching, many yoga teachers don't know how to get their name out there. Now at this time, I had already subscribed to other subscription boxes and I loved them. I love that it felt that like I was getting presents every month. I was listening to Carrie Green's She Means business book and it all of a sudden clicked. I wanted to create something that teachers could get in the mail that was both fun and educational. And since I love to shop for presents, I thought this would be a great way to channel my strengths in a positive way. Inside every box, I make sure that there's an inspirational book that will promote personal growth and a business workshop so they can become more business savvy. Then I also include some fun goodies like self-care items, classroom accessories, and cute office supplies to inspire the hustle. We even have a private Facebook group where we have our book club and support one another's journeys. My hope for Yoga Boss Babe is to be an all-around box of goodies that will support and empower yoga teachers.
Yeah, I love that idea. I think that it's one of those things where it's this like little thing that can go a long way. Like, I think that sometimes when you think about like, oh, you know, having like a new essential oil or having, you know, that like new snack bar you can try seems like, or maybe the new notebook, whatever it is, seems like something that's so like little, but those things can really like make your day. Like, you know, having that essential oil can like spice up your class, or having your notebook to write your sequence in can be something that really like, it changes sort of your mental landscape in a really positive way.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, if you go to Target or wherever, and there are so many different types of notebooks, but for me, I would rather have a fun and inspirational notebook that has like a fun little quote on the outside to kind of help me motivate me throughout the day versus like a black notebook that just doesn't really say anything on it. So I wanted to offer those fun and motivating tools to kind of help inspire the hustle and just keep it fun and keep it motivating. And that's basically what I wanted to do with this.
Yeah, I love it. And so what have been some of the biggest challenges that you've experienced since launching Yoga Boss Babe?
One of the biggest challenges is marketing. So I don't have a marketing background, so I'm kind of doing this as I'm going. I'm learning as I'm going. So a big one was Facebook ads. That was a really big that was a really big topic to cover, and just social media as well. I'm not one to post a lot on social media. I'm more of a looker. So putting myself out there and trying to figure out what to post every day was kind of daunting to me. So I actually hired someone to come help me do that, to help me take that off my plate, because the social media aspect of that was very stressful for me, because I really didn't know what to post, and I felt like having a social media presence is so important to a business, because that's what keeps your clients and your customers and your fans out there, keeps them coming back to you and see what you're about. And going back to the whole branding, it really kind of speaks to who you are and what your company is about.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So you have somebody who's doing your social media and your marketing. Do you feel like there's anything that you've learned from the things that they've encouraged them to do that you could share with listeners out there who are like, yes, I struggle with marketing too?
So with my social media manager, her name is Jules. Hi, Jules. So she posts Instagram posts every single day, and she kind of just has the reins on it. So every time I look to see what she posts, it is really encouraging to what she posts, because I don't really tell her what to say or anything. She just comes up with it. And it's such a great fit for her to be part of our team because she gets it. She's also a yogi. All of her captions, all of her quotes just fit perfectly into what we're about. And I mean, I'm so lucky to have her. So.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've followed you on social media, I think since we've connected, maybe even a little bit before you and I actually connected. And I really like your account. So she's doing a really great job.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
definitely. Thanks, Jules. Shout out. Outside of social media and marketing, have you experienced any other challenges through the process of launching YogaBossBabe?
So one of the challenges I have with YogaBossBabe is sourcing the actual boxes. So every month comes with maybe between 4 to 6 items to help motivate teachers, which includes a book, the workshop, and the different accessories and tools. So every month I think of a theme, and I try to tailor all the products around that theme. So I have to reach out to different vendors, reach out to different yoga companies. For October, I actually reached out to Manduka, and we have a good relationship, and they love what we're doing. So I'm so grateful to have them on board with what we're doing. So yeah, I think the hardest part is sourcing the products that I feel would help the yoga teacher, help the recipient, and make it so that it actually helps them with their entrepreneurial journey instead of just giving them boxes of just things that they won't use. So that's one of my biggest challenges, is to get the right product in there, because I put so much of me into it that I hope it resonates with that when they open the box and they see everything in there.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that would be one of the things that would be challenging, because it's thinking about, what would you like each month, and then thinking about, who else is purchasing them, what do they need, what do they want, and also probably as you go along, like trying to differentiate each month too. Cause I feel like, we have these ideas of like, oh, I would love to get this. And then it's like, okay, next month, what would I like to get? Month after that, what do I want to get? Right. A year down the road, what do I want to be getting?
And for me, it's like once I get a month out, like once I get those boxes shipped, I have like maybe a week or two before I do it again. And it's just like this process of once I ship it out, I'm so exhausted from the month before. I have to remind myself to give myself a couple of days just to relax and just reset, take some yoga classes, and just give myself a break before I dive back into it, because it's kind of like a wave where in the beginning of the month, it kind of starts up and it goes up until shipping day. And then right after, I'm so relieved that everything's out, I'm done, but then it comes back again. So I just have to mindfully tell myself to just relax and don't get too worked up, because one of my issues is I get too involved and too focused. And what we were talking about before, I'll just sit at the computer all day and not give myself a break. So I really have to, that's something I'm really working on.
Yeah, definitely. I can relate to that as well. It's like, oh wow, I need to like take care of myself and do something that's not business focused.
Right.
I think though, like it shows how passionate you are about it and how much you like want people to receive those boxes and open them up and be like, wow, like I got this, like this is awesome.
Yeah. And what the feedback that I get from the boxes, whether it's on social media or through private messages, it makes me feel so humble to receive those messages, because it's just so great to hear what their experiences are and how it's changed their lives. And it really motivates me to keep going. And it's funny that I'll receive those messages when I'm kind of in my rut, where I'm kind of exhausted. And I'll get an email saying, I love your box. I love what you're doing. Thank you so much. And, this has helped me a lot. Stuff like that. And it just helps me. Those are the things that keep me going. So, it's great to hear those messages, and it just reassures me that I'm on the right path.
Yeah, I can like definitely relate to that as well. I think because like I just put a podcast out there and like I see download numbers. I know that people are listening, but sometimes I'm like, do they like it? Do they not like it?
Right.
Is it good? Is it not good? Like, I don't really know. And then it's like the occasional email comes through that's like, oh my God, you really like helped me with this. And I'm like, okay, phew, can keep going now.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it just makes me keep going and it inspires me just to keep doing it. Because I know I have these thoughts where I'm like, what am I doing? Is this really working? And I'll have self-doubt and just it's not growing as fast as I want it to grow, or, you know, what if they don't like it? And I think for me, since I'm so hyper-focused in it, that I forget to kind of think back. But once I have that moment to think back and look back at what I'm doing, that's when I kind of start to think about where I'm at, where I want to grow this business. And that's the exact time when I'm getting these messages, and it comes at the right time. I'm not kidding you, like, and it helps me keep moving forward. And it's really amazing to hear these stories. So thank you for everyone who, you know, messaged me. So it really helps.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like, it's nice to have that external gratification sometimes when you are putting something out. I think especially digitally, because like, you know, say you teach a yoga class, for example, you get this feedback kind of right away from your students. You know, they say thank you, or they maybe give you a hug, or they say like, oh, I can't wait to see you next class or next week. And you kind of get this like, okay, great. Like they enjoyed it. You get this like moment where you can get some feedback. But I feel like when you put stuff out online, it's like a lot harder to get that feedback, because people are, you know, they're probably like at home opening their boxes, feeling super stoked and getting to take their goodies, you know, with them for their day or their weekend or whatever it is. But if they never actually tell you about that, it's like you don't get to share that experience with them.
Right. I am nervous about being online because everyone is behind a computer screen. So some of the comments, I haven't received any yet, but some of the comments can be not as motivating as I would want them to be. So I'm just kind of afraid of receiving those.
So I haven't experienced this with MBOM, and I don't know if it's just because the yoga industry is more supportive, or maybe it's just because it's a smaller podcast. But with our travel podcast, we don't get like a lot of hate. Like we definitely have, you know, we have like, I think 4.5 stars out of 5 on iTunes, but there's just the occasional person who's clearly listened to like 8 minutes of one episode. We almost have 200 episodes that are all an hour long. And they're just like, these two people are stupid, or like, I hate these people, or like, this is the worst podcast ever. And to me, I'm like kind of a sensitive person. And I'm like, you don't even know who I am. And you clearly don't create content, because if you created content, you would never hate on me like this. But, I was feeling kind of down about it. And somebody that I work with one of my, consulting jobs was like, you know what? You know, you've made it when somebody hates what you're doing. And I was like, what? And they're like, you've got to be like,
I mean, that's a good tidbit.
Yeah. I think it's like, it's still, I don't know. I think it still sucks when somebody like thinks something negative of something that you've kind of put your entire heart and soul into and that you're really passionate about. But it kind of comes back to that like idea that not everyone's going to like your teaching style. It's like not everyone might resonate with your content or your business. And I still don't think it's like good to hate on somebody else, but I think it does, you know, coming back to like, okay, if I'm reaching enough people for somebody to really hate what I'm doing so much to like leave me a bad rating or write me a bad comment, like, you know, that means I'm reaching a lot more people that will really love what I'm doing.
I mean, yeah, that's a great perspective to have. I couldn't agree more with what you just said. And just to kind of add on to that, it's just a constant reminder of I'm not going to please everyone. It's okay if someone doesn't resonate with what my box is. And it's okay. I just have to keep telling myself, because that's part of doing business. And like what I said in the very beginning of this podcast is you're not going to please everyone, and it's completely okay. Just move on, right? Like take it as a learning experience, take it as constructive feedback to see what you could do better, and just make your product better and move on.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's like all you can do from it, other than like maybe feeling sad. But I think that it's like better to look at it like, okay, you know, what can I learn from this? What can I do differently? If there's something, maybe implementing that, and other than that, moving on. After the
initial, oh my God, this sucks. Right.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely know that feeling. So do you have any other like business lessons throughout your career that you've learned that you could share with somebody listening who's maybe a newer yoga teacher, or any other just lessons that you feel like are important to know from the yoga business perspective?
Sure. Basically, I would just say get out there, start teaching. You'll find who you resonate with as a teacher, who you like teaching, and who resonates with you. So at first, when I started teaching, I thought, oh, hey, I want to teach hot yoga. But I found out that I really don't like teaching hot yoga to people around my age. I love teaching the corporate age, 25, 35, around 45, that age range, because just their reaction to these classes are so motivating for me and so inspirational to me, because I feel like I made a difference in their lives.
I think that, you know, like everyone has kind of like a different age group or maybe a demographic that they resonate with. And I think that finding who that is for you and then kind of going in that direction is amazing.
Right. So adding on to that, I think the more you teach, the more you'll find who your tribe is, the more you find who you like teaching to and who will follow you. And once you start to do that, you'll start to figure out what your brand is and what you kind of want to do with your yoga career. For me, it was kind of just merging my two passions together and kind of creating YogaBossBabe from that. I know some of my subscribers, one of them, I think she's a microbiologist and she's a yoga teacher. So I'm trying to see how she could kind of merge her two passions together. Or there's another subscriber that I have who she works in the jewelry line. And she's just starting to do her yoga teacher training now. So just try to see what your two passions are in alignment, because like what we said before, there's so many yoga teachers out there. And to be successful, I think you need to be unique. Find your niche, find what your passion is, and merge it with yoga. See however way you can merge the two worlds together, and that will be your brand, and that will be your niche that people will follow you with.
Yeah, definitely. I think that that's such great advice, especially since the yoga industry is pretty saturated. I feel like, yeah, look at what you love and then come up with a way that you can merge, you know, whatever your passion is outside of yoga with your passion of yoga.
Right.
Amazing. Do you have anything else that you want to share today, Liz?
Yeah, of course. One last piece of advice I do want to share with everyone is just to be authentic in your teaching, be who you are. Try not to mimic or try to be someone else that you want to be, because more chances than not, it's not going to come off right, and it's going to come off inauthentically, and you'll lose followers that way. So my piece of advice is just to own who you are, love what you're doing, and in that, you'll find out who you are as a person, and you'll find the people who resonate with that and will follow you.
Amazing. I love that piece of advice, and I think it's so important. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today, Liz. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you. Where can people go to find out more about what you do, about YogaBossBabe, and that sort of thing?
Sure. So our website is www.yogabossbabe.com, and you can find us at Facebook /YogaBossBabe and on Instagram at YogaBossBabe. And if you need to email me, you can do hello@yogabossbabe.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. It's been so much fun talking to you.
Awesome. All right, guys, I hope that you enjoyed that episode as much as I enjoyed recording it with Liz. It was so fun to get to know her a little bit better and to be connecting with her more. And you can look forward to more episodes of the podcast sponsored by YogaBossBabe. I would definitely encourage you to go check out the subscription. There's nothing better than getting a little box in your mailbox every single month that has amazing things to support your yoga business. Also, a huge thank you to my sponsors, Ceteris and Fave Yogis. Make sure you go check them out. As always, you can find more at www.mbomyoga.com. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Mastering the Business of Yoga, and in the private Facebook community at Yoga Business Badasses. As always, thank you so much for listening, and namaste.